They say everything is bigger in Texas. We will find out if the numbers are larger. Welcome into the Voice of College Football and our Texas Deep Dive Live. We can only make this possible through the metrics and the insight and the information provided by Tony Altamore, consultant and strategist. Tony, how you doing tonight?
Doing great. Hook 'em horns.
That is the call of the night. Absolutely. Absolutely. And Texas, of course, a mainstay on not just the football front, but the athletic landscape across this great country. And it may surprise some, academically, a strong foundation there in the state of Texas as the landmark program and school and institution in the state. We appreciate Tony doing these for us. Check out some of the other posts that we provided. Tony and I have gone live to take a deep dive on Florida State, Michigan, USC, and others. So check those out. We are going to get to as many as possible throughout the summer. All right, Tony, I will let you unleash your metrics on all of us.
I'm excited to be here. I have a ton of friends that went to Texas, and you guys are going to see it's a pretty impressive place. So let's dig in. So I guess, first of all, just to kind of give you guys kind of an intro, what we're going to do tonight is we're going to look at Texas across 4 dimensions. First, we're going to talk about the school as a university. Then we're going to look at its academics. We're going to look at its athletic department, which is one of the best in the world. And then we're going to look at its football team, which is also pretty storied, as you guys know. And so this is a part of a series that we're doing here on Mark's Voice of College Football channels. And we're doing one deep dive this summer on every school that is part of the Voice of College Football channel community. So those that the VOCFB channels have their own special channels for. So it's a pretty amazing set of really some of the best schools and the best teams in the country. But that's the sort of universe that we're going to compare Texas to tonight. So we know Texas is one of the best, but we're going to compare it against the very best, which I think is kind of cool. So these are the different channels that we have, and these are the schools that we'll be talking about tonight with Texas in comparison of. But a lot of our other things, you'll see Texas compared to the whole world of FBS as well. So I guess one of the interesting first things that we see, we'll do a couple of these here before we dive into the details. But we did a quick analysis. We said, does money buy championships? How do your spending versus your success look? And Texas is one of the biggest spenders, but also one of the most successful programs. So tonight we're going to have a lot of talk about success, and this is one of them. Another thing I just want to give a shout out to Texas for, we're going to talk about metrics a lot and finances, but Texas was one of only 9 schools last year who actually returned excess profit back to the school. Now, there's a lot of complications with, how student fees work and subsidies and all that. Texas is they're one of the most profitable athletic departments in the country, but they're one of only 9 schools that actually took extra money and sent it back to the school. And I think that is just hugely respectful. So something we got to give them a shout out for. So we looked kind of earlier at, different success metrics. Where one of the things we're going to talk about tonight, and one of the things we like to start off with always when we do these, is this chart that compares athletic success and academic rank. So, how good a school are you versus how successful an athletic department are you? So the metrics for this are using the last 2 years of Director's Cut points, and it's from they just made the latest release, so it's from before that, versus your average academic rank. And when we do the average academic rank, we're using the 3 most sort of respected academic ranks among them. We're using the U.S. News one, we're using the Shanghai one, and we're using the Times Higher Education Wall Street Journal one, which generally are pretty much the most respected. And so we've created a special thing here at the Voice of College Football community where we've, for these deep dives and our other analysis, where we're looking at averaging these ranks among the world of FBS and AAU schools, because obviously enormous overlap there. But when you take a look at Texas, there are 2 schools that stand out as being on top of the world of both sports and school, and they are Texas and Stanford. So you can see Texas kind of there at the top. One of the interesting things, we talk about this a lot. There are no bad schools in the Power Five. We don't really have to have this discussion with Texas because it's a great school, but there really are no bad schools in the Power Five. Interestingly, there also are no really powerful athletic departments in the G5, which I think is kind of interesting. So we'll take a look at that. All right. So the power conferences, like we said, are kind of in a different world. Texas is in a different world from even the power conferences. So tonight, if you're a Texas fan, tonight is going to be a fun dive into your numbers. There are very few Texas numbers that are not incredibly flattering. So this is looking just here at the Power Five. Once again, Texas way on top of everybody. Now, you guys will kind of see this. In the SEC, there are 3 schools academically that sit head and shoulders above everyone. Obviously, Vanderbilt, and then Florida, and then Texas. So, and Florida and Texas are pretty similar. So, certainly a lot of the things that apply to Texas also apply to our deep dive of Florida. And one of the reasons we talk about this so much with some of the academics and the money is just that the money that these schools are running on the academic side is so important. And the research that they're doing is so important. So this is all federal academic research. You guys can see of the entire landscape of 6,200 schools, the SEC makes up 8% of all federal research, about $6 billion. And by the way, that's not fully giving Texas credit for some of its med schools. So as we talk about numbers tonight, we're looking at just Austin. But in reality, the truth is the University of Texas, much like the University of California, is just an amazing, amazing institution across the enterprise. And so, for example, Texas has 3, truly world-class med schools that aren't in Austin. And so the numbers that we have, for example, tonight that we talk about will not include with the Anderson Cancer Center, Southwestern in Dallas, and whichever one is in Houston. There's 3. So anyway, and Dwayne is in here talking about the PUF, the Public University Fund. Texas has arguably the system. I think I'd have to check the latest. It's the second or third biggest endowment collectively in all of sports. Although we're looking at just the Austin piece. So should we start just taking a look at the school itself?
Let's do it. Yeah.
All right. The SEC is big, and just giving you guys a sense here, the only conference really bigger is the Big Ten. So these are big schools we're talking about. This is our university comparison. We just want to kind of do a deep dive. We'll quick jump in, tell you guys about the school itself. Texas is a public school. It's not a land grant school. Not that really matters. It's an AAU school. It's been an AAU school forever. It's a Carnegie R1. Now, R1 is the highest designation that Carnegie gives to any school for the research they do. And what's pretty impressive is when you look at this whole world here, these of our Voice of College football channels, every single one of them is R1, which I think is pretty cool. So that really says a lot about Texas. Pretty big population within 50 miles. It's over a couple million people. Texas, big school, big budget, $2.7 billion budget. Now, remember that, again, that does not include these massive hospitals and med schools as well. Per school spending, you spend about $53,000 a student. Now, let's look at how big you guys are. It's a pretty big school. So you've got about 41,000 undergrads out of about 52,000 overall. So it's pretty heavy undergrad at UT, which is a little surprising, probably because a lot of the grad students are elsewhere at some of the other campuses. You have about a 64% admissions rate and about a 44% yield rate, which is pretty good. That means that students that get into UT want to go to UT. And then your prices for in-state students, you charge about $29,000. Out-of-state students, you charge about $59,000. But Texas provides an enormous amount of financial aid, so the average student going to Texas is only paying $16,000. So overall, I mean, it's really sort of your epitome of the great public elite institution. Should we dive in next?
Yeah, nothing's jumping out quite yet. We will obviously survey the chat. So if you've got comments and questions, folks, please leave them in the chat.
Chime in, guys. Like we said here, Texas is AAU. We're going to take a look. This is just comparing conferences here, looking at endowments, research, and average academic, average rank by conference. You get the SEC is a really, really good conference. One of my SEC friends always likes to make jokes, and he says, "We don't like our fans to know how smart our kids are," because the SEC schools tend to be flagship schools. A lot of them are AAU schools. They do a lot of research. They tend to have pretty big endowments, and they're pretty well ranked. So one of the misconceptions is people don't realize how good the schools are in the SEC. So as we dive in here, we take a look at Texas. And Texas, now bear in mind, guys, these red to greens are just red to greens that is for among our Voice of College Football world. So the red, these are all great schools. But you can take a look in this realm of just all great schools. Texas is, this whole column is green. That's crazy. I mean, the only other schools that are close are, Michigan, USC, and Florida. And I get Notre Dame's is not even that close to Texas in a lot of these. So, again, diving in here to diving here to some numbers. So the average academic rank, again, this is among FBS and AAU schools, is 37, which is incredibly high for a public school, for a huge public school. There are 38 U.S. News, 24 Shanghai, 60 in Wall Street Journal. Forbes has them at 43. The faculty, so quality of faculty, is ranked at 35, which is amazing. Research, quality of research that they put out is ranked at 28. That is the best in the SEC. It's better than Vanderbilt. And Texas, last count, was doing almost $800 million a year in research. Now, and for comparison, I mean, you guys are currently in the Big 12. No one in the Big 12 is even close to that. So, Texas was just light years ahead of everybody else. And we did a thing, I think you saw it, Mark, a long time ago. We talked about, we did a bunch of these heat maps, and we looked at them across conferences, and where there was big disparity, we found that people didn't get along. And we see that the Big 12 is a great example of that with Texas, where just everything about Texas, sports, market, academics, institution, everything was just very different from the Big 12. You guys were really in that world with the Floridas and the Michigans and the USCs and the Notre Dames, and not really in the old conference. So, and I think that changed a lot because, the old conference had a lot more AAU schools. It had a lot more big flagship state schools that left over the years. So it kind of explains why Texas felt out of sorts a little bit. Your endowment. So you guys have something crazy you have like a 39 or whatever $1 billion endowment for the system. You guys at Texas file also paperwork with the Department of Education where you claim that only about $7 billion of that is credited towards UT Austin. A lot of it has to do with the med schools. They're separate. But yeah, so you're looking at about $6 or $7 billion in endowment. Your annual fundraising, last time we had a survey for it, was $420 million, which is a ton. That's great. What was that, like third or something of all of these schools? Yeah, the only higher than you were USC and Michigan. And Notre Dame. But yeah, just phenomenal fundraising. You've had 29 Rhodes Scholars, which is a ton. That is second behind Oklahoma. So that's pretty amazing. Your social mobility rank was okay. And again, I think this is pretty fantastic for a huge public school. You're running about an 88% graduation rate for the whole student body, which is, this is a stellar university, whether you like them or not. It's hard to beat this as a flagship state university. And I'll tell you, I can tell you this has always really been a goal of Texas. There's a guy, if you guys ever heard of Pauley Pavilion, Ed Pauley, who was sort of this legendary figure of American history that more people should know about, was a very, very close friends with LBJ. And so in the 50s and 60s, they were basically scheming to build up the University of Texas and the University of California, and they both, succeeded fabulously at doing that. So there was a clear thought process behind this by literally the President of the United States that helped you guys get to there.
Tony, how much of an advantage is there for a school, let's say in the state of Texas, which I believe is second in population, therefore the tax revenue that goes to the school, whatever portion of that is, the affluency of the population in the state. I don't know what that is overall, what the average is, but I think it's more important what the top end is rather than a medium or median within the state. Just how much of an impact and advantage is there in a state like Texas when there are those type of resources within the state, just based on mass volume, but also high end income?
Well, there's huge advantages in fundraising that helps fund everything. The other thing, and it's what is it, the PUF? I mean, so Texas actually at one point they took some state land and and I don't remember exactly, and if somebody in the chat will fix us, they took it was like land that had oil on it, and they literally took the oil and land money and put it towards the school's endowments, which is why the University of Texas again has a bigger endowment than anybody besides Harvard, I think. Stanford, maybe it's basically Harvard, Stanford, and Texas, and Princeton and Yale. I mean, just you guys have an obscene amount of money that the state invested and planned for and wisely put this together. And it's just, it funds your school. I mean, it funds the growth of healthcare. I mean, there's a reason like world leaders with cancer come to the University of Texas. They go to the Anderson Cancer Center. Like, it just, I mean, again, like, kings go to Texas, the University of Texas, to get their medical treatment. This is a pretty serious place. And it helps that the whole state is focused on it. And I get a lot of flack from this. People disagree with me. I don't think the current conference they're in appreciates how much of a punch in the gut losing Texas will result in. Because it is the elephant in the room, always. I got the giant steer in the room, perhaps. Whether you like him or hate him.
I would think somebody out there with some perspective and some information on the academics, but also the resources and then the athletics, has put some kind of percentage spin on how much this is pulling away from the Big 12 with Texas and Oklahoma, but in particular because we're highlighting Texas tonight, and because Texas, from a resource standpoint, dwarfs Oklahoma in some ways.
A lot of ways.
How it's 20% of what the conference was from just a sheer numbers standpoint, 2 out of 10, but the value to the conference is obviously way beyond that.
So Bob Bowlesby, the old commissioner, testified before this Texas state legislature that Texas and Oklahoma were 50% of their value. So half.
Yeah.
Between the two of them. I'll also say the way to think about Texas, really, another kind of good way to think about them is, imagine if you had, the University of California, Berkeley, but with USC's athletic department. That's Texas, essentially. And that pains me to say because I was at the Vince Young Rose Bowl. Okay, I still, like, in my nightmares, guys, hear the haunting echoes of Texas Fight, like, echoing off the Arroyo, like, as the band just continued to blast. The eyes of Texas are upon us all the live long day, well into the night as we trek to our car. So, a little bit of pain, but love the Longhorns.
Yes, one of the epic moments in the history of college football. And
also, I'll tell you one other funny thing. So that Rose Bowl is just kind of a funny laugh. That Rose Bowl was late. It was late. It was like the 7th or something of January, like on a Monday night. So, everybody in LA is like, it works. There wasn't a lot going on. So they had lots of any affinity group, fraternity group, club you were in, whatever, had these like joint events of Texas and USC together. And the two fan bases, more than anything I've ever seen before, had so much fun together and got along like so well. Like, I mean, the fans from USC and Texas were just having a blast together, which we thought was heaven. But I think most of the other college football fans on earth would just call that hell. But to us, it was great.
Yeah, the older I get, the more I can embrace and enjoy that and agree with that. But certainly at 20 or 25 years old, I would have thought, what's wrong with these people? But yeah, the older
Because
I
everyone
get,
hates USC and everyone hates Texas. So like it was a match made in heaven. So hey, just a quick show you guys here. This is academic ranking. This is that three-way average we talked about. You guys can see here, in the SEC, and we're considering USEC for this, guys, because you're out. You're SEC now. So there in the SEC, you are, you're just almost identical with Florida, sitting there kind of in the middle between Vanderbilt and A&M. But, take a look at where you are relative to the Big 12. And you can see, why Texas usually had its nose in the air. I mean, Texas it's a fantastic, fantastic school. Now, you guys have, in various times in the past 30 years, flirted extensively with the Pac-12. And you can see you're pretty close to Washington. So you'd be, in the upper end of the Pac-12. And, always people talked about you with the Big Ten. You'd be about middle of the Big Ten. So, the only league that really beats you is the Ivy League. That's okay, though. You're not trying to do that.
yeah, it's an impressive combination of academics, athletics, and finance and resources. Yeah. Yes.
Really is everything. Again, admissions rate, student selectivity, you're right there with Florida, also fantastic. This is your quality of faculty. Your quality of faculty, again, phenomenal, way beyond number one in the Big 12, number two in the SEC. And then taking a look here at your research expenditures, we're going to dive into your money just a little bit. You can see you are fourth in the SEC in research. But again, if we added those, you guys in Cal are the weird cases, right? Because if we add your full med schools in, you just blow away this whole chart and it goes crazy. So this is just Austin, and you're still, number four in the SEC. There's always a debate about what you want to include in these, because there's a couple schools, Texas and Cal, and a little bit of Alabama too, because of UAB and Huntsville. But Texas and Cal are like, they just get an asterisk. The real answer should just be a ton. That's the number. It's a ton. It doesn't really matter. It's huge. This is something I think you guys should be really proud of. This is your research ranking. So Washington Monthly puts this together based on a bunch of different factors within your research, and you're number one in the SEC. I mean, again, hard to compete with that. Fundraising, again, so the average SEC school fundraises about $164 million a year. You guys were at $440 in the last survey. So, pretty hard to beat that. Wait, did we? Oh no, we did the other one. Okay, sorry. Let's look at athletics. But everybody likes more. So, so you guys, phenomenal athletic department. The Directors Cup was won, once 30 years ago by North Carolina. Then I think something like 26 or 28 in a row by Stanford. Then you won the last two before Stanford just barely beat you out again. And it came down to that last baseball game, against you guys and Stanford, when the guy lost the ball in the lights. So, again, you were right in the mix of it there. So here in our Voice of College Football community world, you have the number one overall athletic department. You have, among our big three national championships, which is football, basketball, baseball, you have 10. You have 55 overall national championships. And again, this was like 2 months old. So if you won something in May, sorry. You've got 155 Olympic medals, 16 official sports. which isn't a ton. But the sports you have, you win. You have a pretty big, for that size athletic department, you have a pretty hefty number of athletes of 598. You have an insane athletic department budget of 193 million. Of that, 60 million goes to football. Now your basketball, you're a little kind of low. Again, your basketball team's pretty good, but you don't spend a lot on them. Although I don't know, maybe they'll blow up with whatever they had to do with the Chris Beard situation. Your Olympic sports budget here, 34.8. To whoever's asking, I thought you were in the 20s. So this is unduplicated. So for example, you guys might be counting, I'm going to make this up. I don't know. I don't have the list in front of me, right? But you might be counting like track and cross country as 2, but they share a coach and share athletes, or swimming and diving is separate. So I don't know exactly what they're counting. This is from the EADA. This is like the official number of coaches, head coaches that you designate, which is a good measure of equal of sports. Because again, some people combine, when you start messing with like swimming and track and all that, some people, indoor track is different from outdoor track. It's the same coach. So that's all one. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I was looking at the wrong one. I was going down the wrong list. You do spend a lot on basketball. I'm sorry, guys. I was looking at Florida. No, you do. You spend 16 million. You spend more than anybody in this chart. So your Olympic sports are high. Now, here's an interesting thing. So we do a calculation here for these deep dives. We've calculated what we estimate to be the profitability of football and men's basketball. So if you cut your department down to just have football and men's basketball, how much money would they make? Which then gets to fund the rest of the athletic department and the rest of the school. You are the number 2 most profitable that we see of anywhere. At 134 million of just extra profit, which is wild off football and basketball.
Wow.
You have 38 College World Series appearances, which is crazy. You've had 3 Final Fours, and you were number 5 in the most recent Ken Pom, although you turned into a pumpkin in March. And then you were also really solid before. So again, this is a stellar athletic department. Crystal Conti is doing a great job. DeLoss Dodds, who was the athletic director forever, is a legend. So hard to beat that, Mark.
It is difficult to beat. It is just that $134 million revenue coming in from men's basketball and football.
That's the profit,
staggering.
And again, that's an estimate. So we calculate that by the formula. So this is interesting. This is the entire AAU, and it's looking at the athletic budgets of the entire AAU. You're number 2. And here's the thing about Texas is that your sports are making money. Your sports are profitable. So, I don't really think that it's right for people to criticize and say like, oh, Texas has so much emphasis on sports when like you're making money off it. I mean, it is a success story. So I don't see there's any judgment in that. SEC is just looking at by conference. SEC, they have pretty big athletic departments, but they spend, and you spend along that. You get, here's earned revenue. SEC's number 1. SEC schools don't subsidize their teams very much. Only a very few do, and I don't even think you guys do. If you do, it's just a fraction. We can skip that. Looking at Olympic sports budgets, again, yours is really high. You are number 3 in terms of if you guys are baseball fans, in terms of all-time College World Series national championships, behind USC Fight On and LSU, who was tied with you and just passed you this year. Baseball budgets here. You guys have the 5th biggest baseball budget. The only school spending more on baseball, interestingly, all SEC, Vanderbilt, Ole Miss, A&M, Arkansas, and you. Of that bunch, you are the most successful. And then water sports. So this is combining swimming, diving, and water polo, and synchronized swimming as part of that. I thought this was kind of cool. You guys are one of the biggest spenders in the water, and you win a bunch of national championships as a result. So this was looking again at that last 2 years of all sports points. You're number 1. Hard to beat.
Tony, you've hit us with some new categories here. I especially enjoy the water sports
Like the water sport.
graphic.
We don't. Not a lot of our teams are there. Ohio State is there. They won the synchronized swimming national championship, so they got a little trophy for that. But yeah, so Texas spends a lot in the water. Yeah, we added a couple. This was that average cash flow profitability. SEC is number one, and of that, so again, here, guys, the only department that I think sort of our estimates here show is more profitable than you is Ohio State. So hard to beat that. Texas is a success story. You spend a bunch on recruiting. We got to read all the wild, like Arch Manning recruiting saga that we saw in The Athletic. Again, here you're probably about the fifth highest spending in recruiting. And of course, SEC is number one. Now, should we get on to football and make Bilal happy?
Get on to football, Tony. But before we do that, I would love to let everyone know that we have released our line of keychains and also coasters just here in the last few hours. So check those out, folks. You see at the lower right, I'll bring them into focus there. Those are the coasters. Those are the keychains as well. Check those out. And folks, the keychains are $3. We have taken care of shipping and handling. Just put in the promo code football. And so go to thevoiceofcollegefootball.com. I'll leave the link in the live chat. And again, the keychains are $3. You get a set of coasters for $29.95. And again, use the promo code football for free shipping. So get your keychains, get your coasters, get all set for football season.
I like it. Good stuff. All right. Should we look at football?
Yeah, let's go to football. We've had some folks in the chat that are impatient, waiting for the football numbers.
All right. So the Kyle Umlong, who's a devout Longhorn and a blogger and stats guy, creates what he calls the Blue Blood Index, which I think it's actually a really cool product that he puts out every year and updates it. And in his Blue Blood Index, you are number 7, which is pretty impressive. And then Winsipedia does something pretty similar where they create an aggregated total of statistics, and you're number 6. You have 4 national championships, according to the NCAA, 2 Heisman winners. You spent 45 weeks at number 1. I mean, these are all pretty good. You've been in the AP poll 757 times, 281 since 2000. So that's also very good. Of course, as you guys know, you've been kind of up and down. I'm sorry, 249. You've been kind of up and down, and so you have times of greatness and times of some struggle lately. But I think people pretty much think they're back. You're a huge draw on TV. When we did our fan base study, you're one of the biggest fan bases in the country, which is why part of why your departure to the Big 12, I think, was so devastating. You have a 70% overall win percentage, which is one of the highest in the country. You've got 30 conference championships, 62 consensus All-Americans. I mean, these are huge numbers, guys. You've had 46 NFL first-round draft picks, 357 total. And like we said, you are incredibly profitable. So John wants to know, is Texas back? Mark, I think they might be back.
Well, is Texas back? Well, they certainly are in play. They have the best roster. There is no question, the best personnel in the Big 12. And I know the response is going to be from a lot of people, well, that's a deal every year. No, it is even more decided right now than it's been in a long, long time with Oklahoma dropping back. So from a personnel standpoint, in terms of rosters, now can Sark make it happen? Can they avoid the fourth quarter collapses that have plagued them? If the Texas team that took the field against Alabama and played so well for 4 quarters, they came within one play of winning that game, can show up nearly every week. Quinn Ewers can stay healthy and take that big leap that most quarterbacks take between their first and second years. Texas is an intriguing situation for me. I think that they're one of the most interesting teams in college football this year.
Yeah, it's going to be cool to see.
We did have some earlier questions, Tony, concerning D. Wayne asked about Texas makes billions from the Public University Fund. The PUF fund is oil money that comes from Western Texas, near Texas Tech, actually, but only Texas and Texas A&M get the money. It's sick. Do you know anything about that?
So I think they're doing something that there's some element of this. That was where I talked about how they funded them with oil money. And I think Texas has 2/3 of it and A&M has 1/3. And there's some proposal or some ballot measure or something where they're going to allocate some of that money, they think, to Texas Tech and Houston. Maybe somebody else too. There's that's sort of a very internal state politics thing. So I don't know all the details of it. Again, the hard thing with a state like Texas is that its political leaders have traditionally very much been Longhorns and Aggies, except for the governor from SMU, who is running their pay-for-play scheme. That was run by the governor.
Need more cowbell. I've never understood why Texas is not a top 10 football team every year. The cash is there. The fan support is there. So the quick and easy answer there is bad hiring, just uninformed decisions from the hiring process.
Say, neither can the Texas fans.
Yes. I also think that, and I don't know exactly how to pinpoint this. Maybe you've got a view on this, Tony, but there is no other football program in America that when there is a coaching search or a coaching decision to be made, or the current coach is on the hot seat, all of that I hear from people that are knowledgeable about the situation and understand where the politics of Texas football kind of interferes with what's going on. And there are just more hands in the pie than just about anywhere else in regards to maybe not the best people always making the decisions, and there being some power plays behind the scenes.
I've heard there's a lot of that.
Yes. More so than anywhere else. But that's the deal right there. Yes, they've got the resources, they've got the money, they've got the talent. They've got the talent in state, of course. They've got everything going for them, but they have made questionable hires for that head coaching spot, and maybe they're not allowing those people to make the right decisions and run the program. Has been an issue in the past.
Although, I think they have a great coach now.
Well, I will say that remains to be seen, but certainly he was at USC, did a decent job. Of course, he had off the field issues that came into play. He did a fine job at Washington. In neither case did he necessarily outperform his predecessor or his successor at either school. He's one of the best offensive minds in football.
Well, I was going to say, I guess it depends on how you interpret the Heald administration. There are different pieces of the Heald administration for SC.
Yes.
Those were an interesting few years in LA. We could just do without. Now, here's the thing I think is interesting, guys. When we look at the consolidation that's come through realignment, and Texas is part of this. So this is 1950 to present national championship winners, and you'll see the champions have really consolidated into 3 conferences: the SEC, the Big Ten, and the ACC. And I'll tell you, the ACC doesn't really get enough credit a lot of times. But you get, again, you see as we shifted you guys over here, more of them went to there. Since 1950, there is only 1 national championship in the Big 12. Now that you and Oklahoma are in the SEC, and that's pretty wild to think about. And it gets even crazier if we look at since 1985, which is sort of like gives us a very undisputed championship. There's a little bits of dispute since then, but not like there used to be in the early 80s and before. But so looking here since 85, 51% of national championships are in the SEC. And it's among 8 of the 16 teams have won one, which that I think is pretty remarkable, Mark. Of the SEC's 16 teams, 8 of them have won a national championship since 1985.
Yeah, your SEC detractors that point at Alabama and
Although
Georgia carrying the
Vince Young's
conference.
knee was down.
What's that?
Vince Young's knee was down, so maybe it shouldn't be on there. Just kidding. I mean, I'm not kidding because it was down. But
yes, may have
but
to
we'll
go
let
back
you
and
have
look
it.
at that. We do have our great debate series going here at the Voice of College Football. Maybe that's a good one to go to. Texas and USC. I got to say, I was surprised on that night. I thought USC was the better team and going to take it home, but
I
and
thought so
they.
over the 35-yard line too.
Yes. But 8 out of the 16, or what was 14? Yes, 16 in the SEC, because we are including the additional 2, is impressive, because there's this SEC hater detractor narrative about Georgia and Alabama carrying the conference, and I get it, but that's very much a recency perspective that those people have.
Okay, hold on, I think we have this. This is Shadow Bearded has given the truth here. Yes, his knee was down, but also Reggie shouldn't have tried a lateral. Okay, also true.
Yes, bad move on Reggie for just trying to make a big play, a huge play.
It's true. But yeah, you take a look there. I mean, I think there's a lot to say here. The Big Ten, out of 16 members, you've had 5 of them have won a national championship since 1985, which is also pretty impressive. And ACC, I really think we should have Notre Dame there with them, because Notre Dame plays a half ACC schedule anyway. This particular chart doesn't, but so you put that there, you've got 5 of 15, which is pretty impressive too. Pac-10, you've got 2 of 10, which is not particularly great. And of course, the Big 12 doesn't have any. So,
and as I've noticed in our past discussions, Tony, if we move up that parameter of dates 7 years to 1992, we completely wipe out the right side of the screen.
Yeah, we lose Notre Dame. The whole right side of the screen goes away. Is there anybody else we lose?
Colorado, Washington gone, Georgia Tech gone.
Looking at the left, on the left side, we keep them. We keep all 4 ACC. No, we lose Georgia Tech.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Yeah. Everything from Georgia Tech to the right gone.
Georgia Tech to the right goes away, and I think everything to the left stays.
Yes.
I mean, actually, we should update this and just do it as 92, because that would be even more.
Penn State technically goes away.
You're right. Penn State goes away too. Who cares?
Even though I think they should have a share in 94, but they would technically go away.
I agree. And Notre Dame people would argue for 93 as well.
Yes, and rightfully so. I'm on their side. Which reminds me, we will pick up our series here soon and do a 1980s look at national championships. We've gone all the way back through 1990.
And by the way, as you do that, think about the Jimmy Johnson Lou Holtz fight, and just realize now that could be at the annual AAU meeting. Who would have guessed that? Oh, here, taking a look at this, guys. This is weeks ranked in the AP poll. You can see here by conference. I mean, obviously, no question, Texas's rich legacy. The only schools in the SEC ranked more in the AP poll are Alabama and Oklahoma. So that's pretty rarefied air.
Okay, Florida State. Okay, so it's only those 2 in the SEC, and that is all time.
That's all time. Yep. So that's a pretty telling statistic. And again, you can kind of see looking at where Oklahoma and Texas fit on this chart. If you move them down to the Big 12 line, you see how they fit in that conference as well. And you also see why the Pac-12 would have loved to have them so many times over 30 years of flirtation.
Do you have any background on that in regards to what the demands were, what went wrong, how it broke down? The most recent would be the one here in about 12 to 14 years ago. Yeah.
So there was the 90s one, which almost happened, where Ann Richards wanted Baylor in, and that was just one more than they were willing to take. Then in 2010, Texas really wanted to bring a whole lot of friends. The Pac-12 didn't love quite how many friends they had, but we were willing to stomach it, and so it was going to be 16, and they were going to bring in 6 into the Pac-10. But then ESPN really wanted to keep Texas. They offered them the Longhorn Network, and so they came back to the Pac-12 and said, will you match this? Now, the funny thing is Mike Young, who was later the president at Texas A&M, who was also president at Washington, was at the time president at Utah. And he was really pushing for Utah. In fact, he was doing, on behalf of Utah and Colorado, the secret negotiations with the Pac-10. And they said to him, they were like, well, we're going to take 16. We don't have a place for Utah. We're so sorry. And he said, don't worry. Texas will screw this up. And when they do, call me. And he said, no. Larry Scott said, no, we've got this all set with Texas and blah, blah. And he said, no, Texas will screw this up. Trust me. Texas will demand something that the LA schools will demand equal of, and you can't give that. And Larry Scott was like, oh, yeah, well, that's exactly what happened. He was 100% right. And Texas came back and said, okay, we want this. We want, similar, our own network, all this money. And the LA schools said, oh, well, if they get that, so do we. And of course, that would destroy the entire business model of the Pac-12. So that deal fell apart. And however, Colorado was still coming no matter what. And then Utah just happily jumped in as well, and they went to 12. But, DeLoss, again, Texas and the University of California have always been a lot more intertwined than people think. And I think Texas A&M is also a partner with the University of California on their DOE labs. So they've been more intertwined than people think. And I mean, it would have been a good fit. I think they would have fit well in the conference. It would have been made for a very, very different world today.
Yes.
But as LBC Trojan reminds us, the first of Champagne Larry's many losses.
Because think about that, because the just solely football fan out there is going to say, well, Texas hasn't done anything since 2010, so why would that have impacted anything? Because they wouldn't have added much to the Pac-12. That's strictly on the field. Plus, we don't even know what Texas would have done on the field in the Pac-12. But from a
especially in the last couple of years of bad Pac-12,
from a popularity standpoint, bringing eyeballs to the TV screens, resources.
Remember, it wasn't just Texas. It was Texas, Oklahoma, Texas Tech, Oklahoma State. And who am I forgetting? Colorado was already coming. Forgetting somebody. Texas. Oh, A&M. A&M. Yeah, that would have been Johnny Manziel in the Pac-12.
It would be just, we wouldn't be going through this with the Pac-12 right now. Obviously, we'd be going through this with, the Big 12 would be
with history. The MAC
done.
No, they would have just backfilled with like they would have backfilled with TCU and SMU and everybody. It would have been like Southwest Conference and the Big 8 leftovers. The Mountain West. Kind of like they've done now, but on a bigger scale.
Yeah.
They're going to be mad at me for saying that. They're already mad at me today. So that is Texas in a nutshell. I mean, again, like we said, guys, this is an awesome school. If you are a Longhorn fan, you should be very, very proud of your school. It is a phenomenal institution, a phenomenal university, a phenomenal athletic department. And as much as we like to laugh about, is Texas back? It's a pretty stinking phenomenal football team.
It really is. It's just a sleeping giant ready to explode. And entering the SEC, I think, is just going to cause people's awareness to be at their maximum there, to do their best. And I think they're going to step up to the challenge. I really do. And I think for all the 6 and 7 loss seasons that they've posted in the last 10 years, that would have been even more disastrous in the SEC. I can understand that equation that people make that, well, they've been this unsuccessful and not meeting expectations in the Big 12. What's going to happen in the SEC? But I truly believe that they're going to rise to the challenge to some degree and not be embarrassed, certainly. and be a factor, be an
No,
impact in that
well,
conference.
and also they fit in well in the SEC as a great school too. I mean, the SEC has some great schools, and Texas really adds to that. You're right up there with Vandy in Florida.
You know what really popped out at me as you went through the spending in the various athletic areas was, and this is no big surprise because a uh, they've made it pay off on the field, but Vanderbilt has obviously decided we can win at baseball and we can make this work, and they've poured the resources, so the resources back up what the results have been in recent years.
Yeah. Well, and the whole SEC has for baseball. Although I'll tell you a laugh. Now USC is getting a new baseball stadium, but I remember when I was an undergrad once, I said to a friend of mine, because the SEC, I mean, they have like 10,000 people or 8,000 people at their baseball games. And I said to a friend, I said, I wish we had a ton of people at our baseball games. And he said, we do. We get 45,000 at our baseball games. I said, what? He goes, yeah, it's called the Dodgers because we have more to do here. And I laughed. I went, okay, I guess you don't have the Dodgers in, Starkville. But no, but the SEC, they love baseball and they put in the resources to it. And I'll tell you, when you think about the SEC with baseball, it becomes very hard to compete with, it's better than AAA. SEC, I mean, not necessarily in skill. My baseball family will come and pound me with a bat for saying that. But, I mean, facilities and crowd-wise, it's better than AAA.
Yes.
So it's hard to beat.
Yeah. When I left, I was only a couple years into the business and only a couple years removed from Kent State. And Kent State had a fine baseball coach who later went to Georgia Tech by the name of Danny Hall. And Kent State was going to, within games, 1 or 2 losses of reaching the College World Series at the time, but nobody cared. Nobody showed up. Nobody knew that they were playing. You'd go to the games. I'd go down to the games to cover it for our little TV2 cable system there on campus, and no one was at the games, and they were really good. And then I find myself 3 years later going on my second job when I became the sports director at a CBS station in Mississippi, and I was told, look out for college baseball. Are you into college baseball? And I'm like, I don't even really know it exists. We go to the Indians games, we go to Major League Baseball games in Cleveland. And I got down there and I fell in love with it. It was awesome. People love it. They tailgate. They have a great time. They hang out for the entire weekend and bring their RVs for the weekend series. And I went to regionals all over the SEC and Texas A&M, and it's just a fun atmosphere. And yes, they pack out the house for SEC baseball.
I'll tell you something funny that USC did for baseball. This was great. So one of the things they did to help ensure a rowdy student section is the baseball stadium was one of 3 places on campus that you could buy alcohol in your meal plan. Never mind that no one over the age of 19 had a meal plan. So it was there was definitely a little strategy to help get the crowd riled up. And it worked.
That is awesome.
Anyway, yeah, I just, we look at these and we do these deep dives, and every time we do one, I come away impressed in so many different ways with the schools. I mean, one of the things we've talked about is that there are no bad schools on the Power 5 level, especially in this sort of blue blood world of channels you have, Mark, here in your Voice of College Football community. And these are all great schools, but even among these great schools, UT definitely stands out. So
that's something that should hit home. I know you emphasize that each and every time we do another episode in this series, but people see the red and they react, and it's all comparative numbers, comparative analysis among excellent programs and excellent institutions.
It is. So, yeah, so I love it. And I'm hoping Texas is back because, the football world is better when Texas is back.
It is one of those programs that draws people in and would be much better to see them because people love them and hate them. And you know how that is being a USC guy, Tony.
I do. I know it very well. It's good to be hated.
Well, Tony and I do these deep dives, and we're going to get to all the schools in the Voice of College Football community, and maybe a few more that are certainly relevant out there. If I can get maybe Tony to put aside his USC uh, side of him, and maybe UCLA would be an interesting one to do. But
Oh, we should
certainly
do
we've got to get
UCLA.
through the ones that are listed there in the Voice of College Football community. So check out the ones that we've already posted.
They
And
they are the nemesis, but it's a pretty great school. And I'll tell you what, one of the other things with USC and UCLA, and this has always been one of the weird things about the Pac-12. It's got a lot of weird things, but one of the weirdest things about the Pac-12 is there is a bizarre. Your arch rival has very much like a partner in crime relationship. You are your big rivals on the field or whatever, but like generally you like your arch rival much more than anyone else in the conference. And it's a unique conference in that regard. Like, if you say to the SEC people like, oh, hey, Alabama, your friends from Auburn, they'll be like, I don't have any friends from Auburn. But, the Pac-12 is weird in that their little pairs all kind of go together. Yeah, maybe Arizona. They hate each other.
In which direction does your heart tug when UCLA is playing an NCAA men's basketball game or playing a bowl game?
So I want them to lose so I can tease them, but not because I hate them. So I'm like, okay when they win because it's not embarrassing for us. But I do kind of enjoy when they blow like a 99% win probability against Pitt because then I can tease my friend.
Okay. Because, that's a big split within the sports fandom landscape. Half the people seem to be rooting for their rivals when they go out on the national stage, and half the people are like, hell no, I never root for my rival. Screw them.
And I mean, part of that also comes down to, UCLA being, at least for USC and UCLA being a great another phenomenal athletic program. Like they usually win. So when they blow it, it is more fun to just tease them. But in a loving way.
This is the deep dive here at the Voice of College Football, and this is only possible because of Tony's efforts. So we appreciate
it. And by the way, here we go. There it is right there.
All that.
Tulane guy has Pitt Sunbolt. See, this is USC and UCLA right there. In a nutshell. You're right. I have no business making Pitt Sunbolt jokes. That's the dynamic. It makes it kind of fun. And the Big Ten will learn. They'll learn.
Yes, that's going to be a strange dynamic as well to morph those Los Angeles fan bases into the.
I mean, they just made a movie. It's the Barbie movie where Barbie comes to life. That's called USC UCLA. Come to the Big Ten.
You always bring it into some type of word picture that we can all relate to.
Yeah. There you go. It's that Barbie movie. Watch the trailer for the Barbie movie, and it's USC and UCLA join the Big Ten. I love it.
It's good stuff. Well, Tony and I are going to decide. Tony and I will decide who is next up in our deep dive series, and so be looking out for that. I'm going to be live at some point on Friday night, and unless something major happens in college football, we will continue our look through national championship seasons and disputed national championships as we look at the 1980s. And again, that's going to be on Friday night at a time to be determined. Tony, thank you so much for this. We appreciate it as always.
Thank you. Hook 'em horns.
There it is. Hook 'em. Thank you, Tony. I'm going to stay on here and just sell a little merch before we take off.
Sell some merch. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Tony. We so much appreciate Tony and all the expertise that he brings to the table. And, the standard company run of graphics and metrics that he has is typically and always good enough. But I was impressed by the spin that he put on to highlight some of the Texas places within their sports and academic programs to be highlighted. So that was really good stuff. Folks, we've got keychains and we've got coasters. Let's check them out together. Why don't we? There they are. So here's the deal, folks. If you go to the voiceofcollegefootball.com, thevoiceofcollegefootball.com, and I'll leave the link in the chat, we've got keychains just released today. You could be the very first to own a Voice of College Football keychain. How about that? And they are only $3 as we pick up the shipping. If you put in the promo code football, promo code is football. Keychains are only $3. And then the coasters, you get a set of, I want to say 5. It might be 6 coasters. And you see them displayed there at $29.95. Again, promo code is football to get the free shipping. Keychains, coasters, Voice of College Football. How can you go wrong? Please check them out at thevoiceofcollegefootball.com. I'm going to leave the link in the chat. We'll be back on Friday. And if anything breaks in regards to news, we will discuss it Friday night here at the Voice of College Football live with you. If not, we will continue our series going through the national championships as we tackle the 1980s. Coasters and keychains. Thank you, Joey. Joey did a great job organizing the keychains and the coasters as always. We have a lineup here at the Voice of College Football that I think most of you don't even totally realize, because starting on Sunday night, we've got a USC show, Trojan Conquest Live, with our guys Tim and Rick, and that thing is blowing up on Sunday night. It's at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, USC football talk with Tim and Rick, and that's every Sunday night at 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 Pacific. Then on Monday night, we've got another USC Trojans show, Trojans Live with Matt Zemek and myself. Trojans Live, that's at 11 Eastern and 8 Pacific. That follows the Big Ten Live Show. The Big Ten Live Show with John D'Adamo and myself. John hosts 2 hours, and I host the other 2-hour block. That starts at 6 o'clock Eastern Time on the Big Ten Live Show right here at the Voice of College Football on the main channel. Tuesday, it's Nebraska and Iowa Live. We've got the Hawkeyes show at 5:30 Eastern. We've got Nebraska Live at 7. On Wednesday, we've got a host of live shows. We've got Ohio State at 11 in the morning. We've got Oklahoma at 12:30. We've got Michigan at 5, Florida State at 6, Miami at 7 every Wednesday. Huge day of college football, followed by a live call-in show on Wednesday night. On Thursday, we've got the Clemson show with Jordan and Tiger Paw Craven going on at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. They may still be at it. I don't know. But over on the Clemson channel, we've got the Clemson show each and every Thursday night. It's the all-in show with Jobo and Tiger Paw Craven. Then at 7 o'clock Eastern, we've got the South Carolina show with Twisted Rooster. Check that out. And that is the Above All Else South Carolina show. And then on Friday, the West Virginia Mountaineers live show right here at the Voice of College Football. We've got some exciting announcements to make here in the next couple of weeks involving post-game. So most likely your favorite team is covered with a post-game show here at the Voice of College Football. So be standing by and ready to take that in. We've got media days coming in for most of the conferences, starting, I believe, with the Big 12 in just about 2 weeks. Check that. I believe we're just 1 week away. Oh, man, Connor, keeping me honest. Thank you, Connor. The Pac-12 live show is debuting next Wednesday. So that's Wednesday, I believe the date would be the 12th. Wednesday the 12th, the Pac-12 live show is back. That's on the main channel and on the Pac-12 channels that we have, Oregon and USC. Thank you for that, Connor, appreciate that. We've got too many shows to count these days. So thank you so much for that and reminding everyone to join us for the season debut, the kickoff of Pac-12 Live next Wednesday. All right. Front and center, though, Friday night, right here with me, the voice of college football. Again, if we have any breaking news tomorrow in college football, we will hit on that. And then we will go into our deep dive of national championship seasons in the 1980s. Friday night, right here at the Voice of College Football. We will see you then. In the meantime, check out the keychains, check out the coasters at thevoiceofcollegefootball.com. We have left the link in the chat. See you Friday.